Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of another Starlink Group 8-7 mission from the Space Coast, that is Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Space Launch Complex 40 from Florida. Hope you all are doing fine and excited about this upcoming launch. We are awaiting for a Falcon 9 liftoff at 4:55 a.m. Eastern Time from Slick 40, Eastern Florida, for a northeasterly launch for SpaceX Starlink mission. The Starlink mission 8-9 will launch 20 Starlink satellites, including 13 with direct-to-cell capabilities, to low Earth orbit. Today's Starlink mission marks SpaceX's amazing 363rd overall launch. Hello, my name is Dipta Maitra, performing the commentary for today's mission launch, and we are super excited bringing you the live coverage of SpaceX 70th overall launch and 67th launch of Falcon 9 of this year. This will be the 48th dedicated Starlink mission of the year for SpaceX and a record-breaking 103 direct-to-cell satellite launch. Prior to today's launch, SpaceX has launched 1,048 Starlink satellites so far, over 47 flights, and overall 6,698 Starlink satellites to date. Now, before getting into mission details, just some quick updates. Firefly Aerospace has decided to stand down on today's Alpha launch on its 5th flight to give the team more time to evaluate data and test systems from the first attempt made yesterday. Secondly, teams from NASA and Boeing Space are targeting now not earlier than mid or early July for the end of July for the return of Starliner crew from International Space Station, although dates are yet to be confirmed. On July 10th at 11 a.m. Eastern Daytime, NASA's Boeing crew flight test mission media event is scheduled. And lastly, the much anticipated US ISS Spacewalk 90 with NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson and Mike Barrett on June 24th, which lasted 31 minutes following a water leak in the service and cooling umbilical unit on Dyson's spacesuit. No further schedule provided by NASA yet, and with that, US Spacewalk 91 is also delayed and now scheduled for July 29th. For this, timing is yet to be confirmed by NASA. We are keeping a keen eye on any updates and will let you know as soon as possible. Also, we will be streaming the event, so don't forget to tune in. Now, just a note, it's me only managing the launch coverages on my own. So if we face any technical issues, please bear with me. I will do my best to guide you through the Falcon 9 rocket launch happening in less than 1 hour, that is 59 minutes and 38 seconds and counting. Now let's get back to today's Starlink 8-9 mission. So far, SpaceX reports that the weather is looking good for today's Falcon 9 launch opportunity and the range is ready to support, having 20% probability of violation and 80% favorable outlook, with minor primary concern being cumulus cloud rule only. For now, the forecast suggests a small chance of isolated showers in the vicinity. We hope that they are able to launch on time and not have to push too far, because now at what time SpaceX is targeting, we are only left with 1 hour for today's launch window. But if we don't have a launch today, we do have a backup opportunity on Sunday, that is July 7th, with launch window opening at 12:28 a.m. Eastern Time. SpaceX is currently targeting a liftoff time of the Falcon 9 from Cape Canaveral at 4:55 a.m. Eastern Time, 8:55 a.m. UTC, which will be 1:55 a.m. Pacific Time on Wednesday, that is on July 3rd. Now, before diving more into today's mission details, firstly, we express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone for being a part of today's launch. We really appreciate you being here. Big thanks to our amazing YouTube community for being here today, as we provide detailed coverage of space launches, complete with extensive statistics and thorough insights. Now let's take a look at today's payload details for Starlink Group 8-9 mission. This launch marks the 48th dedicated Starlink launch for this year. A quick fun fact: at the inception, the two identical Starlink test satellites called Microsat 2A and Microsat 2B were launched on 22nd February 2018. Upon orbital deployment, they were renamed to Tintin A and Tintin B. So Tintin A and Tintin B are the first Starlink satellites to be launched. Starlink satellites are built at SpaceX Satellite Development Facility in Redmond, Washington. Today's launch consists of 20 version 2 mini satellites, including 13 with direct-to-cell capabilities as well, making a record-breaking 103 direct-to-cell satellites launched to date. The version 2 variant of Starlink is too large to fit inside a Falcon 9 fairing and is meant to be launched by starships. To address this issue, SpaceX modified the original version 2 blueprint into a smaller, more compact, and named it version 2 mini. SpaceX also indicated they would build satellites of the second generation constellation in two different but technically identical form factors, one with the physical structures tailored to launch on Falcon 9, that is version 2 mini, and another tailored for the launch on starships, that is version 2. Each Starlink satellite is equipped with powerful 5 advanced Ku band phased array antennas and 3 dual band parabolic antennas, which utilizes Ka and E band to provide increased capacity. Altogether, these antennas utilizes Ku, Ka and E band frequencies, allowing Starlink to provide high bandwidth connectivity, that is 4 times more capacity per satellite than earlier versions. Each satellite features a dual solar array with a size of 52.5 square meters, that is 565 square feet, which unfurls to a wingspan of 100 feet. Also, it has a high capacity battery to provide power to the payloads. The two solar arrays are also aeroneutral, which enables faster on-orbit maneuvers. Each Starlink satellite contains three space laser transponders, that is, optical intersatellite links or ISLs for intercommunications, which operates at up to 200 Gbps, which together across the constellation form a global internet mesh that can connect customers anywhere in the world, also enabling the spacecraft to transmit data without local ground stations, providing truly global coverage. Each Starlink version 2 mini satellite weighs nearly 800 kilograms, that is 1763 pounds. Starlink satellites are equipped with efficient ion Hall effect thrusters powered by argon, which enable Starlink satellites to orbit raise, maneuver in space, and deorbit at the end of their useful life. Starlink is the first Krypton-propelled spacecraft ever flown. Later switched to argon Hall effect thrusters for cost effectiveness. Also, upon switching to argon, Starlink is the first argon-propelled spacecraft ever flown in space. Now, related to Krypton, the argon required to fuel Starlink version 2 satellites will be practically free. To put it into perspective, fueling its next constellation of almost 30,000 version 2 satellites could cost SpaceX less than fueling 4,000 version 1 satellites, which were based on Krypton. Also, SpaceX claims that its second generation thrusters using argon has 2.4 times the thrust and 1.5 times the specific impulse of the previously Krypton fueled thrusters. Today's payload will be placed in an orbit with an altitude of 535 kilometers and with an inclination of 53.16 degrees. This configuration does not apply to every Starlink satellites. Starlink satellites are placed in different configurations based on their group. Starlink uses custom-built navigation sensors named Star Tracker that surveys the stars to determine each satellite's location, altitude, and orientation for best possible broadband throughput. Each Starlink satellite contains 4 reaction wheels, providing agile attitude control for the vehicle. The hot spare configuration ensures high reliability operation, and its aluminum flywheel is fully demisable at the end of life. Also worth mentioning, the Starlink satellites are equipped with an autonomous collision avoidance system on board for avoiding collisions with other spacecraft and space junks autonomously, which utilizes the US Department of Defense debris tracking database. Now, as today's mission consists direct to cell Starlink satellites, let's speak a little bit about that. So, direct to cell is a technology developed by Starlink team. In easy words, it's like having a cell phone tower in space. This technology allows your cell phone to connect directly to satellites. Now imagine you are in a remote area where there is no cell tower nearby. Normally in this case you won't get any signal on your phone, but with direct to cell your phone can get a signal directly from a Starlink satellites overhead. You don't need to make any changes to your existing LTE phone or download any special apps. It is designed to work with common LTE standards. Whether you are on land, lakes, coastal waters, or even on air, as long as you can see the sky, you can get a signal. It provides connectivity in remote regions, giving you peace of mind when you need it most. Now, before moving on, having a look at the chat, would like to welcome Fairmaid. Thanks for joining us and tuning in. Hope you are doing well, Fairmaid. And your back pain I hope that it has been resided. Also would like to welcome one of our close friend and moderator here on our channel, Vlad. Welcome, Vlad. And last day I wanted to ask you, what about your remaining exam results? We hope that you got them and they went well. And also thanks for tuning in. Hope you will enjoy the stream. And also would like to welcome everyone. So now let's move on. Now with the recent inclusion of Sierra Leone and Madagascar, let's take a look at the countries where Starlink's low latency high speed internet is now available. And as of the current status, Starlink is delivering its high speed low latency internet service to 101 countries and territories. Recently, Starlink achieved its first video call on X through Starlink direct-to-cell satellites from unmodified mobile phones. Previously, we saw textual communications using Starlink direct-to-cell satellites. Now, Starlink is expecting to go live with T-Mobile later this year. Now let's go through a quick comparison of latency between Starlink and geostationary satellites. Recently, we had an update that Starlink set a new record for internal median latency of 28 milliseconds. They are now aiming to reduce the median latency of Starlink internet in the US to get under 20 milliseconds. You know, the internet that comes from satellites, most of the time it's from a single satellite that's orbiting about 35,786 kilometers from Earth. Because it is so far away, the time it takes for data to go back and forth, what we call latency, is pretty high, which makes it tough to do things like streaming movies, playing online games, making video calls, or real-time data exchange. Now, if we talk about Starlink, it's like a big team of thousands of satellites that are much closer to us, just about 550 kilometers from Earth. They are all over the place, covering the whole globe, and because they are closer, the latency is way lower compared to a geostationary satellite. To put it into perspective, think of 25 milliseconds of latency compared to 600 plus milliseconds of latency. You can see on your screen what is the number of round trips in case of a Starlink satellite compared to a geostationary satellite. You can easily mark there is a huge difference. So in simple terms, Starlink's low orbit makes it a game changer for satellite internet, and this could mean smoother video calls, lag-free online gaming and other activities which requires a lot of data and where real-time data exchange is a priority. Moving on, let's learn a little bit about Starlink's collision avoidance system. It's quite fascinating to know how, despite having so many satellites around the Earth, they manage to stay safe and avoid collisions. So for that, let's dive in a little bit about collision avoidance system by SpaceX. SpaceX designs the Starlink satellites raising and orbit lowering reference trajectories with a time optimal path planning algorithm. The algorithm includes additional constraints to ensure that the Starlink satellites always remain at a large and safe distance from space stations, other spacecrafts, space junks, and from other Starlink satellites as well, under nominal circumstances. As an additional safety measure, Starlink's screening system constantly monitors the satellite's planned reference trajectories against the space stations, other spacecrafts, and other Starlink satellites. The system alerts the satellite operators immediately when a potential conjunction is detected, and the reference trajectories are replanned to change the geometry of the encounter and avoid the conjunction whenever possible. Now, if you are feeling we are adding value to your viewing experience, consider giving this video a like, which really helps YouTube's algorithm to bring in more space fans and people to find out this stream. Also consider subscribing to us as we strive hard to bring streams filled with stats and details. We would be super grateful for your support. Now let's take a look at the flight record for the booster supporting today's Starlink 8-9 mission. Quite a mature booster with tail number 1073 will be supporting today's mission. Today's booster with tail number 1073 was previously scheduled to launch the Starlink 10-2 mission, and it is the same booster that experienced a T0 abort for that mission. Today's supporting booster with tail number 1073 has 15 previous flights on it in its record, including missions like SES-22 for SES, a major telecommunication operator based in Luxembourg, iSpace Hakuto R Mission 1, a private Japanese uncrewed lunar landing mission built and operated by iSpace. But unfortunately, that mission was not a success. Then Amazonas 6 for his PASAT. Next, the CRS-27, that is Commercial Resupply Service Mission to the International Space Station. Bandwagon 1, a new rideshare initiative for SpaceX, launching 11 satellites for various customers and 10 Starlink missions. Now awaiting its 16th flight, just minutes away. The last mission supported by today's booster was Starlink 6-58 from here at Cape on May 13th of this year. Previously, with Starlink Group 10-3 launch on June 27th from Cape Canaveral, SpaceX once again achieved a record. For the first time, a Falcon booster 1062 launched for record-breaking 22nd time. The same booster previously set a record with its 21st flight for SpaceX. Before moving on, having a look at the chat. So that's congratulations, that's really good that you got good marks. And as I said you, both the Falcon boosters will be landing safely. So the flight termination systems has been saved and also the boosters has landed successfully for Vlad. Congratulations. And would like to welcome Marcos. Thanks Marcos for joining us. Hope you will be enjoying the stream. Now sit back, relax and enjoy the stream as we move forward. Now let's have a look at the bar graph presenting number of Falcon 9 launches each year. Before today's launch, SpaceX completed 66 launches of Falcon 9 so far this year as part of its milestone, with the recent NROL-186 mission launch back on June 28th. SpaceX hit a big milestone this year's 50th launch with the previous Starlink 8-7 mission. That's just more than half of last year's Falcon 9 launches, which totaled 48. Now with recent NROL-186 mission launch, they have 18 more launches than half of the total launches made last year. This year's count already surpasses the total number of Falcon 9 launches from all the years leading up to the year 2022. And SpaceX is now setting target to launches made in 2023. With the previous Starlink 9-1 mission launch from Vandenberg, they equaled the number of launches from the year 2022. Now with today's launch of Starlink Group 8-9 mission, the bar graph shows 67 Falcon 9 launches so far this year, which is 4 more than the launches made in 2022. They have already done more than half as many launches as they did all of last year, and it's been only 6 months and 3 days of this year. Continuing with this pace, they are on their mighty way to hit the ambitious goal of 140 to 148 launches by the end of this year. Now please allow us a couple of seconds to check whether the launch is on time or not and to stay updated. Be tuned in here, we will be right back in just few seconds. So far it seems SpaceX is sticking with the updated liftoff time, that is at 4:55 a.m. Eastern Time, 1:55 a.m. Pacific Time, corresponding to 8:55 a.m. UTC. So that's a good thing. Now and review the milestones that lie ahead of for us on this Cape Canaveral flight. Just 4 minutes ago, the SpaceX launch team has polled go for the propellant load ahead for tonight's Falcon 9 launch of 20 Starlink satellites from Pad 40 in Florida. So let's discuss more about the pre-launch timeline we are having. At T minus 38 minutes countdown begins at this point when SpaceX launch director gives the go for the start of propellant load, which I just mentioned. We crossed that timeline and we did got a go for the propellant load. Now if everything looks fine, prop load begins at T minus 30 minutes mark with the loading of rocket grade kerosene or the RP1 on board the first and second stages of the Falcon 9 rocket. At the same time, LOX load, that is super chilled liquid oxygen, is loaded on board the first stage. And then at T minus 16 minutes, which will be the next event that we are looking for here, that's when the second stage liquid oxygen load begins. At T minus 7 minutes, that's when the chill down of 9 Merlin engines gets underway, which involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbopumps, which helps protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damages during the startup sequence. At about 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. In a T minus 4.5 minute, the strong back retract sequence begins. The process begins with the clamp arms underneath the payload fairings opening up, followed by the transporter erector or the strong back reclining about 1.5 degrees from the Falcon 9. It remains in that position until liftoff. It's when it rapidly pulls back to clear the way for Falcon 9 rocket's vertical ascent. Now just for a quick knowledge, the strong back reclining process at Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center differs from that at Vandenberg. Here at Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center on the East Coast, we recline the strong back about 1.5 degrees, whereas at Vandenberg we recline it 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9. The strong back positioned alongside the vehicle, also referred as the transporter erector, acronymed as TE, fulfills multiple functions. It supplies propellants, provides air conditioning, pressurization gases, and electrical power. Additionally, it transports the Falcon 9 to the launch pad and positions it for the launch. Here is an image on your screen showing how a strong back or the transporter erector transports the rockets. Although a thing to be noted is that on your screen you are watching Falcon Heavy being transported, but the process is same for the Falcon 9 as well. Now at the T-3 minute mark, the first stage liquid oxygen loading should be complete, followed by the second stage liquid oxygen loading wrapping up at T-2 minutes mark. At that point, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully fueled with 1 million pounds of propellant. At T-1 minute mark, the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. In the final 60 seconds of the countdown, the control of the flight system, that is the launch sequence, is handed over from the ground sequencer to Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. If everything looks good at T-45 seconds mark, the SpaceX launch director will give the final go for Falcon 9 liftoff. Now at T-3 seconds, the engine ignition sequence start command being issued by the onboard engine controller. Finally, at T0, we will have the liftoff. If all 9 Merlin 1D engines ignite and are healthy, flight computers will give the command for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9. Currently targeting a liftoff time of the Falcon 9 from Cape Canaveral at 4:55 a.m. Eastern Time, 8:55 a.m. UTC, which will be 1:55 a.m. Pacific Time on Wednesday, that is on July 3rd. Let's go ahead and have a look at the trajectory for today's mission. Falcon 9 leaving the pad from Space Launch Complex 40 from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station with a batch of 20 Starlink satellites with 13 direct-to-cell satellites on board for a northeast trajectory heading into low Earth orbit. That is to the 8th shell of the second generation Starlink mega constellation, indicated by that green line on your screen. The red line indicates where Falcon 9 first stage will land after stage separation, just a little later leaving Florida's Space Coast. Today is going to be a drone ship landing using autonomous spaceport drone ship. For today, the drone ship supporting the mission is A Shortfall of Gravitas, one of the two here on the East Coast, which means that the first stage booster with tail number 1073 flying for its 16th time will be returning heading out to the drone ship for its landing. The planned booster recovery is 618 kilometers with estimated fairing recovery approximately 700 kilometers downrange, and the stage 2 debris re-entry will be south of Australia on the second orbit. Now we expect the addition of a fourth drone ship likely by the end of this year or early next year. Currently there are 3 in SpaceX drone ship fleet. Of the 3 drone ships, just read the instructions and A Shortfall of Gravitas are stationed here in Florida, while of course I Still Love You is stationed in California. Now, speaking of the fairing recovery, SpaceX will utilize a recovery vessel to retrieve the fairing halves from the Atlantic waters today. The two halves of the payload fairing will be recovered slightly farther downrange from where the first stage lands on the drone ship. After they will smoothly splash down with the guidance of parachutes. SpaceX manufactures the fairing in-house with the total cost of two halves is nearly $6 million. No wonder that SpaceX aims to recover the fairings for repetitive use, which mirrors their approach with rocket boosters as well, upholding the motto of reusability and sustainability. You can see on your screen how a fairing recovery looks like. Although the recovery vessel on your screen is Doug, but today's supporting recovery vessel is Bob. The other recovery vessel Doug is currently awaiting its next assignment. SpaceX has named its two new recovery ships Bob and Doug after Bob Bacon and Doug Hurley, the two NASA astronauts and the first crew SpaceX launched for NASA under Commercial Crew Program on the Demo 2 mission to the International Space Station in 2020. Also this year, May 30th, marked the 4th anniversary of Falcon 9 launching NASA's Demo 2 mission to the International Space Station, returning human spaceflight to the United States. Since then, Dragon has carried 49 people into orbit. Now here is a short video of the fairing separation and the MBAC ignition. You can see how the fairing halves separate, exposing the payload on board, the second stage to space, and the MBAC ignition. Now here is another clip of a fairing half. You know that protective shell from a rocket's payload as it's make its way back home, piercing through the Earth's atmosphere, creating this mesmerizing halo around it. We hope you enjoyed these two amazing short clips. Now, if you feel like we are adding value to your viewing experience, please consider giving this video a like. It really helps YouTube's algorithm to bring more space fans to discover this stream out. Also consider smashing the subscribe button and turning on the bell notification as we work hard to bring you the detailed streams with stats and insights. We would be super grateful for your support. Now let's have a quick look through the launch timeline for the Falcon 9 rocket passing these events following liftoff. At t plus 1 minute and 10 seconds, Falcon 9 will pass through max Q, a point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Then couple of different events coming up in rapid succession. First will be at t plus 2 minutes and 25 seconds, where first stage main engine cutoff will occur, that is MECO, followed by a major milestone within 3 seconds at t plus 2 minutes and 28 seconds, where first and second stage will separate from each other. Just after 7 seconds later, second stage MBAC engine will ignite for the first time during today's flight. That is SES-1 at T plus 2 minutes and 35 seconds. Coming up next at T plus 3 minutes mark, Falcon 9's payload fairings will be jettisoned, exposing the payload to the vacuum of space. At T plus 6 minutes and 6 seconds, the first stage entry burn will begin, lasting for 23 seconds up to 6 minutes and 29 seconds mark, ending the entry burn for the Falcon 9's first stage. At this time around, we will hear the callouts for stage 1 FTS, that is the flight termination systems, being saved. The stage 1 FTS is saved, or you can say turned off or disabled, after the re-entry burn, whereas the stage 2 FTS is saved after the orbital insertion burn. We will also hear the callouts for stage 1 being transonic and stage 2 being in terminal guidance. Next major milestone at T plus 7 minutes and 49 seconds, the first stage landing burn will commence, which will orient and set up the first stage for SpaceX iconic precision landing. At T plus 8 minutes and 13 seconds, the first stage will land on the droneship, A Shortfall of Gravitas, for 76th time overall, marking SpaceX 327th overall landing to date. The second stage MVAC engine will shut down, that is SECO-1, for the first time in today's flight and enter into a parking orbit at T plus 8 minutes and 38 seconds. T plus 51 minutes and 57 seconds, the second stage MVAC engine will reignite for a quick 1 second burn, that is SES-2, and turning it off at T plus 51 minutes and 58 seconds, that is SECO-2, which will set up the batch of 20 Starlink satellite deployment at approximately T plus 1 hour and 51 seconds. It's good that fear made you are not able to hear me. Good for your ears. And we hope that the quality of the stream on your big television is looking good, although we are streaming in full HD only. Later on maybe we will be able to stream in 4K, but it's in a future thing and we are hopeful about that. Yes, see, Blood, you just said what I wanted to say. Just mute the button and watch the stream. I'm saying for my voice only. Otherwise, as you said, yes, these are only images and things. You can watch it without even hearing. Anyways, let's move on and look into some stats as we are approaching towards the webcast to begin. Today's launch marks 363rd SpaceX overall launch and 48th dedicated launch of Starlink satellites for this year. This will be the 351st Falcon 9 launch to date. 16th flight of this particular Falcon 9 booster supporting today's mission with tail number 1073. Today's launch marks 67th Falcon 9 launch of 2024 so far and is SpaceX 70th overall launch of this year, including the third and fourth integrated flight test of Starship and also one Falcon Heavy launch. We are expecting the next 5th integrated flight test probably on late July. This will be the SpaceX 296th Falcon booster reflight to date, that is the launch of a booster that has flown at least once before. 195th orbital launch for SpaceX, launching from Slick 40. Also, this will be the 250th overall orbital launch from this pad, that is Space Launch Complex 40 from Cape Canaveral. With this mission success, SpaceX will have a remarkable 6,718 Starlink satellites launched to date. Now moving on to some reusability statistics. This launch marks 282nd Falcon 9 booster reflight to date. This will be the 76th landing on A Shortfall of Gravitas drone ship to date, 16th landing of the first stage booster with tail number 1073. And with this mission's first stage landing, which paves the way to the 257th overall drone ship landing, marking 308th Falcon 9 landing so far, and 327th SpaceX overall landing to date. Speaking of drone ship landing, let's look into the stats for drone ship landings prior to today's mission. It is worth mentioning among the drone ship A Shortfall of Gravitas has a flawless record with 0 unsuccessful landings and 75 successful landings with the previous Starlink 10-2 mission on its 4th attempt. In comparison, Just Read the Instruction has encountered 3 unsuccessful landings with 85 successful landings with recent Starlink 10-3 mission. While Of Course I Still Love You has experienced 7 unsuccessful landings and 95 successful landings with recent NROL-186 mission. With this, A Shortfall of Gravitas is positioned at the forefront of the successful and unblemished drone ship landing attempts. Kindly note that only this drone ship landing stats which I mentioned here now are excluding today's mission. These are the stats prior to today's mission. Now let's have a look into some key stats for SpaceX launches in this year, including today's mission. So SpaceX has a total of 70 launches, and out of those 20 were non-Starlink missions for commercial and government organizations, and 2 Starship launches. The recent non-Starlink mission supported by Falcon 9 was the recent NROL-186 mission, and previously the GOES-U mission supported by the 10th Falcon Heavy launch. SpaceX used booster for 65 times in those mission launches, and including today's one as well, showing their commitment to sustainability and reusability. Now if we look into the geographical distribution, we get they have 46 launches from East Coast with 13 from Launch Complex 39A, that is Kennedy Space Center, and 33 from Space Launch Complex 40, including today's one, that is from here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. On the West Coast, we have 22 launches, all from Space Launch Complex 4 East, that is Vandenberg Space Force Base. And there was two launches from the Gulf Coast at Starbase back in Texas for the Starship third and fourth integrated flight test. Now awaiting the next fifth integrated flight test. As for landings, they have nailed it 68 times. Most of them were on drone ships with 53 successful landings, 18 on Of Course I Still Love You, 14 on Just Read the Instructions, and 21 on A Shortfall of Gravitas, including one from today. And for ground landings, they have pulled off 15 of them, 9 times on landing zone 1, 2 times on landing zone 2, and 4 times on landing zone 4 respectively. Prior to today's launch, the success rate for land landings is 98.61%. For drone ship landing, it is 96.23%. And finally, the overall landing success rate is 96.74%. I guess it's time for the webcast to begin. So let's switch back to the scene where we will be having the webcast. Right now we are pressurizing the tanks. We are adding a bit of gas to stiffen up the tanks so that the clamp arms can open with a solid structure holding the Falcon 9. Upon opening the arms, we start reclining the strong back about 1.5 degrees away from the Falcon 9.
Strong back retract is starting.
As we heard the call out, the process is now underway. Hopefully we will be able to see the clamp arms around the stage 2 now coming to open up. You are seeing the clamp arms opening up here underneath the payload fairing, the transporter erector reclining 1.5 degrees away from the vehicle. Now we are less than 4 minutes away from liftoff. While watching the live view of Falcon 9, a couple of important steps we completed. The spacecraft team switched to internal power a few minutes ago, and fueling of the Falcon 9 first stage is finished, meaning all the RP-1 prop is now on board. We are still loading the liquid oxygen on both the first and second stages. Currently we are at T-minus 3 minutes and 20 seconds and counting. Everything continues to be go. We are currently chilling in the Merlin engines back from T-minus 7 minutes. The strong back is a structure next to Falcon 9 that carries air conditioning, electrical signals, pressurization gases, and propellant to the spacecraft to the both stages. It also provides the air conditioning
Stage
for the
1 LOX load is complete.
Payload fairing at the top. Now, as we heard, stage 1 LOX load is complete, right on time. We are now awaiting for second stage that will finish up at just inside T-minus 2 minute mark. Now currently we are inside 2.5 minutes. The range continues to be green, and the weather, of course, as we can see, has cooperated. Again, if for some reason we do not launch today, we do have a backup opportunity on Sunday, July 7th. with launch window opening at 12:28 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll be listening in a couple of seconds for the LOX load close
Stage 2
out
lock load is complete.
on the second stage, and here we got the call out. Stage 2 LOX load is complete. All propellants are now on board the Falcon 9 with 1 million pounds of propellant. We are now beginning to vent down the pressure that was in the tubing on the strong back. That's why you can see those clouds coming out there. Next expected
Ground
call
gas
out
closeouts has started.
is what we got already. Call out for the ground gas closeout. That's where we bleed the pressure off, and that cold gas when it reacts with the moist humid air, which gives you that nice white cloud, an indicator of launch upcoming. Next event at T-1 minute, we should hear the call out that Falcon 9 flight computers are in startup and controlling the rocket for the remainder of the countdown.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Right on time, Falcon 9 flight computers on stage 1 and stage 2 are running the rocket through the last minute of count. Now let's listen to the go call outs.
Go for launch.
SpaceX launch director giving go for the launch. We are coming up on T-minus 35 seconds. All system continues to remain go for launch of Falcon 9 and Starlink.
T-minus 30 seconds in cabin. T-minus 30 seconds in cabin. T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, liftoff. Vehicle is pitching downrange.
And with that boom, we have a successful
Vehicle
liftoff.
propulsion is nominal.
Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. T plus 23 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 on its way with 20 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit. We did got the call out for the propulsion being nominal. It's a good call out. We are into the throttle bucket, throttling down the 9 Merlin engines, preparing for the period of maximum dynamic stress coming up.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Another good call out. Both the power and telemetry are nominal.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Now we have exceeded Mach 1 on the Falcon 9. Falcon 9 is faster than the speed of sound right now as we have gone supersonic.
Max Q.
Max Q call out there. We are through the period of maximum stress on the vehicle. We have throttled the Merlin engines back up to full power. Next up, we will be having the call out for MVAC engine chill.
MVAC chill has started.
Right on time, we got the call out. We have started to chill down the MVAC engine on the second stage prior to its ignition just after stage separation. Coming up, 3 events in rapid succession: the shutdown of main engine on first stage, that is main engine cutoff, MECO, followed by stage separation and ignition of the second stage MVAC engine for the first time, that is SES-1, which will boost the payload into low Earth orbit. So let's hear the call outs.
Main engine cutoff. Stage separation confirmed. MVAC ignition.
And we got the call outs for all the back-to-back milestones. Nice views there. The stage 1 nitrogen thrusters is now beginning to reorient the first stage, and the flight computers has commanded the 4 hypersonic titanium grid fins to slowly begin deploying. Now the stage separation is successful. Coming up is the fairing separation.
Fairing separation confirmed.
We got the call out there. The fairing has successfully separated. You are looking right now a view of the first stage, which continues under the force of gravity and steering with the help of grid fins. Although it's a little dark there, it will continue to rise towards the apogee before descending back down towards the landing on droneship A Shortfall of Gravitas stationed in the Atlantic Ocean. Second stage, meanwhile, in its middle of 6-minute burn, is on its way into the parking orbit with the Starlink payloads on board. Next up, we should be getting some callouts for vehicles being on nominal trajectory. So up until now, the launch has been excellent and smooth. The first stage has completed its task and is en route back. The second stage is operating at maximum capacity, and we are getting spectacular views from the second stage at least. Today we are not getting good views from the first stage as it's night time, I guess, there, or the early morning we had this flight. Now currently we are preparing for the first stage to make its return to the drone ship landing site. During this part of the flight, stage 1 relies solely on its grid fins for steering as it re-enters to Earth's atmosphere. These grid fins orient the Falcon 9 during re-entry and guide the rocket during its descent. Right now we are viewing the second stage, but occasionally on the left side of your screen you might be able to notice nitrogen gas bursts as the first stage for altitude control. These are basically used to position the vehicle as it heads back towards the drone ship. Right now on the left side of your screen you can see those gas bursts of nitrogen, also a good shining silver line on the Earth's horizon. That's a cool view to have. Referring to our chat and to Fairmaid is no big deal, is fine completely.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
We got the call out for stage 1 FTS being saved. It means that the entry burn has started also, as you see on your left side of the screen. We have just lit 3 of Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. We are rapidly slowing down the vehicle as it enters Earth atmosphere, and this burn should last just around 23 seconds. We are missing, I guess SpaceX comms are missing some callouts, but we didn't got the call out, but we did saw that the stage 1 entry burn has been shut down on the first stage. Now the Falcon 9 first stage is equipped with 4 landing legs, and those are made out of carbon fiber with aluminum honeycomb. They are placed symmetrically around the base of the rocket, and they will deploy just prior to the landing. Next up, we should be getting a call out for the stage 2 FTS being saved, which will mean that the orbital insertion burn for the stage 2 has been accomplished. Also, we are expecting a call out for stage 1 being transonic. Hopefully SpaceX comms won't miss those ones. Right now
Stage
We are
2 is
getting
in terminal guidance.
great views. The landing burn with the center E9 now lit. We are slowing down the vehicle very rapidly. Should be seeing those landing legs deploy any seconds now. Landing legs deployed. And there we have it. We have successfully made the 308th landing of an orbital class
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Falcon 9 rocket. I guess there is an synchronization loss between the callouts from SpaceX comms and the webcast. Let it be. Coming up next, we will have the second stage engine cutoff, that is SECO 1, and following that event, we will enter into 44 minutes of coast phase as the vehicle ascends to its target orbit. We did got the call out for the MBAC shutdown. And these were the call outs we were waiting for. Second stage engine cutoff, SECO 1, that is MBAC shutdown. And we didn't got the confirmation for a good nominal orbit from their comms, but it might have been achieved that. Now today's landing marks 327th overall landing for SpaceX. And with that, we will wrap up our coverage for now. Be sure to check out the social media for confirmation of Starlink deployment. We want to thank all of you joining us with today's launch, and we hope you all will enjoy the week ahead. Also, thanks to Fairmade for having some time in between your cooking to have this launch to witness and joining us and supporting us as always. Also would like to say thanks to Vlad, our moderator here, for joining us today. Marcos Antonio, thanks for being there with us today, and also everyone else who were there on the live stream today with us. We hope you all enjoyed the stream. Once again, thanks for joining us, showing your such patience, love and understanding, and staying till the end. We are glad to have you all here with us. Thanks again for watching. This is AstroYonder Live and me, Dipta, signing off for now, and we will see you next time.